Arise news analyst Mr. Dayo Sobowale joins us now to discuss the signing of the presidential peace accord by presidential candidates and how far it has helped to curb violence during election season. Good afternoon, Mr. Sobowale. I'm curious. I asked my director of news earlier on, what's the difference between this accord that's about to be signed and the previous one? Because from an observer's point of view, it was not necessarily respected. They stated the provision says stay on the issues, do not attack, personalities or make some certain statements that might incite violence, and we saw plenty of that. So just wondering what you think. How the signing will be different from the previous, how it will it actually be respected from your perspective?
Well, it depends on the way the election goes. Mm-hmm. If the election is free and fair, then the results will be obvious and will be acceptable. But the peace accord is a letter of intent to keep the peace. Mm-hmm. The peace is predicated on the way people see the conduct election. If you sign an accord on peace, it does not mean that you will not react if you see unfairness. Mm-hmm. It does not mean you will not react if you see rigging. It does not mean you will not react if you see police harassing people from voting and things like that. But essentially, the intention is to make the election peaceful. But then it does not make the election the sort of peace they envisage does not make it a sort of peace of the graveyard, because human beings are voting. If you look at the rhetoric up to the last 48 hours from the parties, you will see with the APC man was literally begging his boss yesterday to let peace prevail. You get me? And to allow him to serve Nigerians the way he has served Nigerians too. It was a propitiation. It was an appeasement. Obviously, he is confident that if everything goes according to plan, they will win. Those who have a high stake will not want violence to prevail or for the election to be derailed. But if you look at the rhetoric of the PDP candidate, it is now that he's saying that if Nigerians vote for the APC, they will go from frying pan into fire. Mm-hmm. And then he's saying that Wike in the East is a coward and things like that. Such rhetoric hit up the polity. And you can envisage that when people have a lot at stake, they are not likely to be sportsmen. Political competition is like a football game. The best man may not win, but people should have the spirit of sportsmanship to accept the result when they lose. That is the intention of the peace accord. It has never worked according to that spirit, because people will go to court. People, even in safe constituencies, people will still rig. They tamper, so that at the end of the day, you have more voters than the registered voters. And when they go to court, they are disqualified. You get me? Over zealousness. So it's a human situation. It's a very human situation. It depends on how the conduct of the election goes, because a lot is at stake. And then, of course, don't forget that the polity is stirred up with this fuel crisis, with this money issue, and things like that. People are angry. People may not even vote. So there could be disenfranchisement. There will be voter apathy. And when the results come out and it does not favor some people, they will react the best way they think.
Speaking of apathy, the candidate of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, did not sign the first peace accord. Yes. Of course, we're still waiting to see whether he will be present at today's signing. The last one, he was represented by his vice president, but our understanding is that this was based on an agreement that he would avail himself at as soon as convenient, so because he needs to be the signatory to it. Now, when we have the candidate of the ruling party choosing to not make time for such a noble initiative, what is the message that it sends out? Is this candidate possibly saying that he already knows that whether he signs it or not does not change the behavior of the people in the race and their followers? Is he saying that this peace accord is, as much as it's not legally binding, is it an unnecessary piece of paper? What are your thoughts about, how many months later, almost, I believe 3 months later?
I don't know the law behind attendance at peace accord. But if there is a representative, the parties will be bound by the spirit of that signature and the signing. Maybe in the past he was busy with campaigns because they said they had a schedule all over the country so they cannot break it and come and sign. But now, just a few days to the election, he should have time, especially after he has spoken at this last campaign. So I will expect him to be there. But even if he's not there, it does not mean that he will not abide by that accord. It does not mean.
Okay, noted, Mr. Sobowale.
Yes.
Now, I know that INEC confirmed that it's compiling a list of those who violated the peace accord. The one that was initially signed, which is in violation of Section 92, I believe, of the provisions of the Electoral Act. And it's working with, I believe that's a National Peace Committee, for they're monitoring the violations that have been recorded, and when investigations conclude, they will be prosecuted. I know this is hindsight, but do you think there's something fundamentally wrong with how the peace accord is implemented? It's one thing to monitor violations. It's another thing to ensure that it's adhered to. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Like I said earlier, it depends on the spirit and nature of the competition. If it is free and fair, like I said before, people will abide by all the indices put down in the peace agreement. But do not forget that the peace agreement is not a constitutional issue. It's not a constitutional issue. It's just an informal way of, making people keep the peace and not be violent. Because you have INEC. INEC is to conduct election.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sobowale. I'm not sure I asked that question. I'm not sure it was very clear. I'm talking about the initial peace accord.
Yes.
There were violations, and INEC has said it's going to prosecute political parties and individuals that were in violation of the provisions of the Electoral Act, Section 92. So even if it's not constitutional, it's still a violation, and if arrests and prosecutions will be made, I'm asking you, what do we need to see in terms of how the peace accords that will be signed probably in the future will be implemented, as opposed to just recording violations?
I'm trying to separate INEC from the peace accord.
Okay.
There are two different institutions. INEC is to conduct election.
Okay.
Constitutionally, legally. If INEC has a list of people to prosecute, they will be prosecuted according to the law. That is the responsibility of INEC. This peace accord is an informal setting. Get me?
Yes.
It's an informal setting set up to monitor the election and to sort of alert people that it is a competition, it's not a do or die affair, and that they should be sportsmen. If they lose, they accept it. And the leader, the winner should be magnanimous in victory, so that you have a clean, settled polity post-election. That is the way I see it.
Well, I suppose the question we're asking is, can we hold our politicians to their consciences? Unfortunately, we don't have time to answer that. Yes. Mr. Dayo Sobowale, thank you so much for your insight on the topic.